Welcome back. It's been a big hiatus, though, an episode with this long off season we've had. So today, me and Tyler from the Texas Rangers joins us. What's up, Tyler? We're going to do an episode here on the preseason predictions for each of the leagues.
Yeah, fun seeing these rosters come in. Fun to get another year started. But yeah, it was cool looking through these for sure.
So today, I think we'll break the episodes up and do little shorter episodes. So for this episode, we are going to do the AL West. We'll start with your division here, Tyler. I think we'll get right into it here, not make this episode too laggy. I know sometimes once we get talking about baseball, we can kind of go on for hours. So let's jump right in here to Oakland. What do you think about Oakland? Just kind of like the first thoughts comes to mind when you look at their roster. What kind of jumps out at you about their players here?
Yeah, I they have a very clear strategy, which I love. They haven't cracked 500 in the history of TLG, but it kind of feels like this might be a year where they get it done. That top two in the rotation, Pittman and Hartman, is close to as good of a top two as you'll find in the league. And the team isn't great offensively, but they play a crap ton of defense. So especially in that ballpark, going to be tough to score runs against that team for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's the first thing that jumps out to me too. Those pitchers are just so good. Pittman especially. Pittman was
Hmm.
already good and like a top five prospect in all baseball before last season, and then he had a really good like 3.5, 4 win season, and then he went up even more in the offseason. I had his control go up to 60, 65, and so it was a +5 in both the current potentials, and his stuff went up. So after the season, so he's even better than what he was last season. I think he really has a shot at the Cy Young. I think he's probably got the. I think he actually. You could make an argument. Is there anyone above him ratings wise in the league? Maybe I think him and JP Massey in the AL probably the highest pitcher ratings if you combine all three of those
Close.
categories.
Yeah.
Like I know Soto won the Cy Young and had 6 WAR, but Soto has 25 less movement than John Pittman, and he
Mhm.
has almost the same stuff in control. That just shows the level John Pittman's on. The difference between 50 and 75 movement is insane because you can get lucky with 50 movement, have a good season, and only let up like say 15 home runs, but um, each 10 in the 20 to 80 profiles 20%, so he's literally almost 60% better movement than Soto, who won that Cy Young. So it just shows like how ridiculous. I think you could have a season out of Pittman where he lets up like 6 home runs in 200 innings. He's that freakish. So it'll be really interesting to see what he does. I think the rest of their lineup um, really solid contact wise. If I sort their lineup by contact, I get 7 guys with 55 or better contact. So I think they're going to get on base quite a bit. I think the Lindor signing really nice for them. Gives them a shortstop that has a pretty plus bat, and then they got that really rangy center fielder. And then Altuve's got a big bat there, whether he plays some second or DH, whatever he ends up doing there. They gave a ton of money out in free agency this year. If you look at their
Mhm.
salaries, they have a lot of guys on 1 year contracts. Drew Waters making 12 million. Francisco Mahia was a late pickup there, plus contact catcher. Nick Allen, Moya, Seth Beer. Seth Beer, I want to talk about for a second. I personally think Seth Beer was the best value in all of free agency. To get Seth Beer's bat for 1.8 million is unbelievable to me. I know he's a DH, but guy that kind of power is pretty insane. 37 home runs when he played for me in 2025. Pretty monstrous bat there. That's a really nice addition to that lineup, I'd say.
Yeah, it'll be interesting how they do, that rotation. If Altuve does end up playing second base, which it looks like they might with Song and Beer both being like pretty pure DH types, could take a little bit of a hit defensively, but yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that DH role plays for them throughout the year.
Yeah, it's a really key point there. I think you said there's only that one DH spot to go around. So yeah, it doesn't look like he can play a ton there. He can give you a pretty good right field though. He's actually a 45 right fielder, so we'll see if he gets many games out there. Even though they have a really nice young right fielder, 65 range and a big arm, it'll be interesting team to watch. So a
Hmm.
couple stars there, and then Klothmanstein. I'm a big fan of him in real life for Toronto. He He's had 4 years in the majors now. Always been over a one WAR player. Had a nice 3 WAR season early on there. So if he can give him that nice number 3 profile, he'll be really really good. One last thing to point out, I really do like this Carlos Perez guy too. He came over in a trade
Yeah.
from Pittsburgh a couple years ago and had a couple solid seasons. Nice ground ball guy with a bunch of really high rated pitches. Really solid profile. So yeah, bunch of really solid pitchers there in the rotation. I think they're definitely a team to watch. So we'll move on here. Next up, we got Houston on the list. Houston has been your rival here for the entirety of TLG. They've had a really competitive team. Last year, they started very slow, looking for a big bounce back season this year. Totally different roster. Looking at especially at the pitching side of things, this season made a lot of trades last year and got rid of a lot of payroll. Started last year at $300 million. Now they're down to 210. What do you think about some of the changes they've made?
Yeah, no, I mean, Houston's very scary. It used to be just bat after bat after bat, and it looks a little more balanced than it has in the year past. They're still going to hit the ball a lot. I mean, Pena and Bellinger in the middle of an order is about as scary as it gets. But another team where the top two of Castillo and Maxwell is so crazy strong. And even we didn't touch on this with Oakland. They have Maharas back there, but Houston has Blake Taylor, two really good closers as well. So AL West is seeming like a big pitching division this year, at least from these first two teams.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Oscar De La Cruz got a huge contract. He had a really nice season last year. Played about half the season as a starter and half it out of the pen. 28% strikeout rate, so a couple nice arms. The one guy thing I want to point out, I think especially a big part of the reason they struggled last year was the Ed Howard injury. It was brutal for them. Ed Howard missed the entire season, and I don't think that's a coincidence. They had struggled quite a bit early on without Ed Howard. Losing a guy that's a 75 shortstop with a 50 bat is huge. I think
Mm-hmm.
he was a 3 WAR guy the last couple seasons he played, 2.6, 2.9, but he's probably closer to a 4 WAR guy once he plays the full season there. Um, pretty ridiculous profile there with the 20 stolen base potential there, even better, plus defender. So I think having him healthy this year will really help. And I do want to kind of point out one thing about Luis Castillo I find really interesting. I remember he had like 45 movement back in the day, and he was a fly ball guy. He has completely switched over now to a ground ball pitcher. So he went from a fly ball to a neutral all the way up to a ground ball. So really interesting. I guess that slider or sinker must have got a lot better or something to make that switch. But remember back in the Cincy days, I was thinking about trading for 1 year, but I thought he'd get killed in my park with home runs. But it looks like he's really changed with his age, and now that he's a veteran. He's switched over, so I thought that was pretty cool. Something to point out there. But yeah, I agree. I think what you said about those hitters, it's just they're too many talented hitters to have a repeat of last season. I think they're definitely a lot more competitive this year. O'Neill Cruz was a huge addition. The third baseman,
Yep.
he's one of the best third basemen all TLG. Dude's got 75 arms, 75 stealing rating, big power. So when you add Cruz behind those other big bats that are always going to be on base, Bellinger and Pena are constantly going to be getting on with walks and doubles. So when you have Cruz up, he's going to have a chance to knock in a lot of batters there. Danny Seymour, big guy to keep an eye out on, the right fielder. 65 range, 23-year-old with a big 55 power bat. The guy has a huge potential, and so it looks like he's going to make his major league debut and maybe have a chance to play like 140 games in right field here. That's pretty cool. All right, let's move on to the Texas Rangers, your squad. I will let you take the reins here and tell me a little bit about any changes you've made this season, what you think about your outlook.
Yeah, not a ton of changes for me. If anything, just kind of rotated the infield around positionally in the spring, so just kind of getting some guys in some better spots. With Justin Cologne kind of proving he can get it done at the major league level, so going to kind of roll out the same lineup. Really, the only new things are on the pitching side. Um, Lose McCullers to a division rival we'll get to, but um, bring up a top prospect in Victor Cantu, who I'm pretty excited about. And then a couple adds to the pen, Tim Brannick, Wing Chu Ong, two guys I signed to pretty long-term deals, but tried to front load as much as I could. So excited about the outlook. It'll probably be the similar type of team where we play a ton of defense. The pitching numbers probably look better than the pitchers are, and hopefully we score enough runs to get it done again.
Yeah, I really like those changes you made. I think Cologne with that huge range and huge arm. Just going to be a weapon at shortstop there. Probably should give you pretty similar to what he did last year, around 100 OPS plus. Probably even a little better than he looks at first. When you see a bunch of 45s jump out, you'd think, oh, that's probably like a 70, 75 OPS plus guy, and he gave you 104. But the closer you look at him, when you see how good his stealing is and his base running, and you see his eye, you're like, that's a guy that's going to get a decent amount of walks. And then once he gets on base there, he's going to be able to steal second. And so a little bit better than he first looks looking at that profile. I don't know if he'll repeat like the 107 WRC plus, but he might still be like close to that, like a 95, 100, and give you like a 3-WAR shortstop at least. So who knows what if he could get even better too. So I really like him at shortstop, though. I think that's a nice move there, and I think the moves I all agree with there. I think I really like Acosta. I think he can be an elite second baseman. Really put up, probably compete with Adames there for that Gold Glove. I think those two are head and shoulders above the rest of the league defensively at second base there. So that'll be really cool to see. Yeah, it's not a problem. Definitely a good sign when you win over 100 games and bring back pretty much the exact same lineups, minus McCullers. That should be a really good squad there. So I really like your outlook on the season there. So I think that will be pretty good battle between you and Houston again, competing with a lot of talent there. I think another team that could put a run up there is Los Angeles. I think Los Angeles has improved a little bit this year in the offseason. I think that was a big move bringing in McCullers. What do you think about their outlook here with their nice rotation?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest surprise teams for me last year, how good they were. The pitching took a big step forward last year, and then just to add a guy like McCullers as well, going to be a big help. Bruno was so good a year ago. He's going to be a big add. The pin's really nice. I like Ben Bowden a lot. So yeah, it's a team where it feels like they overperformed last year, but they look better than they do a year ago. So it feels like another team that could definitely, with ease, compete for a wild card spot.
Yeah, the big change for me was Justin Quintana really jumped out at me. I looked at his development report earlier. Justin Quintana went up 5 power and 5 contact recently. So the dude's up to 50 contact potential. And I think with 35 power, it's still not very high, but I think he could legitimately hit like 5 or 10 home runs this year and give you a 75 zone range rating in outfield. He's got crazy, crazy athleticism. So I really think if they end up rolling out with him at center field, and then play a little bit of Marsh at right field, which looks like it has here on the depth chart, um, and Julio in left field. And then I don't know if they'd be Crum at DH or they got a lot of different options here to do stuff. But I
Hmm.
think if Quintana can give you a bunch of innings out in center field, that brings a ton of value. Defensively, they're going to be really good because they have a 70 shortstop with a 75 shortstop rating at defense there. And Marcelo Meyer, one of the best players in the league. So defensively, they could be really, really good. And Novi Marte is a really elite defensive second baseman too. So definitely could be another team that competes there with a top 5 defense, and kind of like you said, overperforms maybe their talent level with the tools on the power and contact side of things. So I think, that together with the healthy rotation could equal another really good year. I really like Quinn Priester too. I think he's just a pitcher with some really highly rated tools there and has the captain mentality, 75 curveball. So I think he could put up a repeat season, maybe even be a little bit better than he was. He had 2.2 WAR in 2025 and 96 innings. So he's actually even better than he was last year. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of season he gives you because that's a nice number 4 option behind Sanchez, McCullers, and Bruno.
Yep.
Wait. All right, on to the last team here, Seattle. What's it look like for Seattle? I know they've had a lot of rebuilding years here. They finally have started to bring up some high draft picks. The rebuild is still kind of underway here. The super low payroll still, but a couple of those big names are starting to work their way towards the majors, and kind of brighter days are starting to show up here. They have the lowest payroll I think I've ever seen at 34 million in TLG. Should be an interesting see if they can maybe crack that 60 win mark this season or be a little bit better. Do you think they have a shot at that? I know they have that really nice pitcher, Nesty Herda is up now.
Yeah. I was going to touch. I really like him a lot too. He's 24 and still some development you'll see waiting to come on his profile, but had a really nice spring for them outside of one start. So the issue is outside of that, the rotation looks like it could struggle a bit, especially in comparison to the other ones we've touched on in the division. Um, The fun one is obviously they bring up Luis Aniel Shepherd at the end of last year, who was the first round pick in last year's draft. He makes it all the way up to the majors. So another guy where it still seems like he's off a lot of his potentials, but he's going to hit dead in the middle of that order. They're going to let him develop in the majors, so that's going to be a fun one to watch for sure.
Yeah, is that the first time in TLG, like you said, that guys ever been drafted and up in the majors in the same season? That was
It's the only one I can remember. So yeah.
Yeah, and he actually survived there with a 90 OPS plus. So yeah, he's got a long way to go, but sky's the limit for him. Really like defensively what they bring with Campos in center field there. That was a huge pickup. 70 power,
Mhm.
65 range. That just jumps off the page at me. Really exciting replacement there for Kellenic. Big trade there. That was probably the biggest trade they've made in a few years there. Huge potential out of him if he can make some contact. Yeah, you get a nice 75 range shortstop there and a nice big range center fielder. At least it could be pretty good defensively. I always like Curtis Mead too. That first baseman got a really nice season in the minors that really jumped out to me a long time ago. Like he had like a 8 WAR season in A ball back in 2021. I always remember that. I always kept an eye on him since then. Just really, yeah, really interesting hitters there. I think that offensively they look a little better than they have in years past. A couple of those guys have pretty solid bats there for young guys. Where in the past they've really struggled to score any runs. So I kind of like the youth they've added there. But yeah, still a long way to go before they're able to compete. I think with you and Houston, but definitely have some guys to keep an eye on. Pretty exciting to have Shepard and Campos in the outfield. So
Yeah,
that's it
that
for the. Oh,
that
sorry.
outfield's sneaky fun. Sorry, no, the other one they just got John Diaz off waivers too from Montreal, and he's coming off a 6 WAR year in AAA. So that's another one of those fun guys with a big season in the minors that they're gonna run it out there. But I do really like that outfield that should give some pop.
Wow, that's a great point. I had no idea he produced that well in AAA last year. That's ridiculous. I saw him in waivers, but didn't notice that. That's a crazy season. Holy smokes! It's interesting how he almost doubled his WAR from the season before at the same level. With the same amount of home runs, just his contact went way up. And that was in way less games too. That's really interesting. Must have played a lot better defensively too. That's hilarious. Look at the stolen base to caught stealing. He had 18 and got caught 14 times the year before, and then he jumped up to 21 and 3. So just shows the year to year, even with the same ratings, that guys, stats can really change. That's what I love about Out of the Park, just kind of the randomness of it sometimes. So that'll be it for the AL West. If I'm looking at these 5 teams here, we'll give a little prediction. I know it always seems biased ranking yourself, but you seem pretty good at being smart about that and not juicing your team up too much. I think we actually probably underrated them when we did them last because I definitely knew your team would be pretty solid, but I didn't expect over 105 wins. So this year, I think. What do you think about Houston? Do you think they have 100 win potential?
Yeah, definitely. I still think when I look up and down the rosters that Houston's probably the most talented. Um, Obviously, last year was just bad luck, and then every year before that, they've proven that they were the best team in the division. So they're the favorite, at least to me. But I think it's definitely kind of neck and neck, or right around 100 wins for both of us, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree. I think both your rosters are pretty loaded. I think they're probably, yeah, I think their top players are just so elite. It really, like you mentioned in the earlier on, it just makes them so hard to play against with the O'Neill, Cruz, and Bellinger and Pena in the middle of that lineup. That's some serious home run
Hmm.
power. So I think they're really competitive. But I think those lineups are really scary, which makes them a tier above the Angels and Athletics. But I think those two teams have gotten so much better pitching wise last few years. I'm really interested to see if those teams can compete for the wild cards because I really think having Pittman and those guys in Oakland, I think pitching that good, especially two guys like that high level, AL Cy Young winner Carl Hartman too. I think Oakland has a real good shot to compete this year. And like I said, the Angels are just a really balanced lineup. So I really like having them. They have a couple superstars there, and Marcelo Mayer, Julio Rodriguez in the outfield. So really like this division. I think the AL's really started to catch up. We'll talk about the next episode in the Central, but I think the AL's a lot better than they've been in the past years. I think a lot of those teams that were rebuilding are starting to get a lot better. Especially New Orleans, our commissioner's team there, really got a nice roster now. And Cleveland's really, I think, improved this year in the offseason with that new GM taking over. Has made some really nice moves, and I think Baltimore in the the Jays and Yankees have all gotten pretty competitive the last few years. So it's just really nice to see. I think there's a huge difference in talent level between the NL and the AL in the past, but I think it's starting to balance out a little bit. Now, and the AL is going to be pretty competitive. So those wild card spots this year should be a little tougher than they've been the last 2 years. I think they'll have a couple more 80-win teams than in years past. So that'll be it for this episode. I know we still kept it pretty long there, but it was fun talking about that division. Spend a little bit extra time on those teams just because I think it's been so fun to talk about their improvements over years past. So that'll be it. And next episode, we'll do the AL Central. Cheers, guys.